Welcome to the Syndicate, a film and TV podcast. Be a part of the conversation as industry insiders, genre lovers, and cinephiles dare to peek beyond the curtains of imagination and dive into the art of cinema. Join us as we want you to spend less time scrolling and more time watching. Now here's your host, Armand Haddad.
Hello, and welcome to Syndicates, where we want you to spend less time scrolling and more time watching. I'm your host, Armand Haddad, and welcome to episode 4. This season, we are exploring the hidden gems of films, or films you probably passed over watching. Joining me in the studio today is Anthony. Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about the movie.
Yes.
So currently, Anthony is a student advisor for a university here in the Chicago area. So I would say, Anthony, you are very accustomed to the idea of individuality by guiding and helping students find their way in college.
Especially with it being online, it's no personal contact, so you have it's a different kind of form of communication, email, phone.
Would you say it's easier or harder?
Hard.
Really?
Yeah, there's when you lose something when it's not, face to face. So there's a different type of way to, make sure you get your point across, make sure the students understand, because, you kind of lose that when you're not face to face.
So would you say, I would think like with more technology, it would be easier to reach people.
It is, but, with us being an open enrollment university, we have a lot of people from different backgrounds. So it's sometimes a challenge, especially if they're overseas, active military. So it could be a challenge.
I could see that. It's always a challenge. And speaking of individuality and technology are central themes in the film we are about to discuss, and that is THX-1138. So, let's get into it. What were your thoughts going into the movie, and what did you think the movie was before watching it?
Well, when I saw the, brief plot summary of the movie, it reminded me immediately of a recent movie called Equals.
Okay.
Distributed by A24. I think that's Kristen Stewart, and I can't recall the actor, the male lead in the movie. But so I was thinking something along the lines of forbidden love because of where society has, I guess, digressed to instead of progressed.
Right.
But also seeing when this movie was made, was it 1971?
Yes, 1971, directed by George Lucas.
Yes, that's what got me really excited, because for me, I only know George Lucas through Star Wars. I'm gonna put it out there, not Indiana Jones fan. I saw Crystal Skulls, which I know everyone hated. I thought it was pretty good, but so I only know George Lucas through Star Wars.
Okay.
So when I saw that this was his first movie, I got excited. I'm like, okay, it's something, different, but still along the science fiction, themes.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was going to be corny.
Really? Because Star Wars is kind of corny?
Well, no, I thought usually science fiction movies in that era could either be like Stanley Kubrick-esque, or B-movie, like cringy.
Like Barbarella?
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be more sort of the cringy, but when I was pleasantly surprised to have that, it felt like a Stanley Kubrick movie to me, how it was filmed, the tone. So I was very pleasantly surprised with that.
Yeah. Like, I could totally see it be like an offshoot of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, not exactly Earth, but like maybe like a colony or like a wayward alien civilization that those astronauts would encounter in
like
their
in the same universe as 2001: A Space Odyssey, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the setting. So the movie opens up and we're introduced to a world that's quite alien to ours. I would say it's very of the time, very 60s aesthetic, which is like concrete buildings, white.
Lots of white.
Oh yeah, very. And I think it's because like the reason why there's lots of white is because the budget was so low. Like it was under $1 million, the movie, and I don't know if it grossed that much
I
at
don't
the
think
time.
it did. I think I actually looked it up. I was curious. I think it was $777,000 budget for that time. So I think for present time, it was only a few million, and I think it only grossed a couple million in that time. So it wasn't a big box office success.
I would say that's probably a dud. You know what's funny? So George Lucas was kind of like the protege of Francis Ford Coppola, and Francis Ford Coppola instructed him like, hey, you need to write a screenplay for me. Like, this will be your first movie. And George Lucas was like, okay, let me make it a science fiction film. Very avant-garde science fiction film. And as I was watching, I haven't seen it since I was like a young boy, because I was a fan of Star Wars. I was like, let me see George Lucas's earlier work. So I watched that with American Graffiti, and seeing THX, his first film, definitely stood out for me growing up, because I don't know, maybe that molded me as an artist, because it's so weird. It's a very, very strange movie, and the dialogue doesn't really explain everything to you. You kind of like have to make inferences of what's happening.
Yes, and actually that's one of the big critiques I have of the film. I think that there's a difference between making your own inferences and this just almost omitting a lot of context. And because the movie's only an hour and 20 minutes long, I feel like you could have added on some time just to give us a little more context on some of the characters' motives, because it was very unclear, and then as events unfold, you need some of that context to fill in, some of the blanks there.
Yeah, and apparently the lack of context was deliberate from Lucas, because he wanted to create a film that wasn't like a film about aliens for humans. It was like if we were opening a door in an alien civilization and just like peeking in. Because like if you were to do that in real life, you wouldn't know what's happening. People wouldn't explain things to you like, oh, this is where they take their medicine. This is where they get their objects. It's like, what's happening? Let me try and figure it out. But yeah, as for a movie, like it can be very jarring for like a general population to like watch this film and be like, I don't know what's happening. Because there's many moments where I was like, I don't know what's happening.
I mean, I felt like it was, for the most part, straightforward as far as where it was heading. I felt like, do you want to get into plot a little bit here? Okay.
Since we're talking about THX-1138, a thing that we like to do at Cinedicate is called the 60-second elevator pitch.
Please stand clear of the closing door.
So when you're recommending a movie to somebody, like they always ask, well, what's the film about? So this is your chance to explain the entire plot of the movie without major spoilers in 60 seconds. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
And go.
All right. THX-1138 is a dystopian science fiction film where a vague, unknown kind of maybe government agency has controlled its population by taking medications to suppress any kind of emotion. So THX-1138 is the main character.
30 seconds.
Everyone has a designation, and so basically his drugs get messed up, and he goes on this little fugitive adventure to find out the secret of what's going on.
Wow, with 10 seconds to spare. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole plot. It's a very simple movie. But yeah, let's get into the plot. So the movie opens up with THX-1138 and his roommates, LUH. So what did you think of their dynamic?
It was interesting because she, and that's going back to what we were talking about. Her motive was, it was interesting, but I wanted, a little bit more context on that. So basically, she was in love with him, and in order for him to feel that back, she adjusted the government sanctioned prescription medication that everyone gets in order for him to, be able to feel love. So they had some very passionate scenes in the film throughout. But her motive, how she got off the medication, I think was a little bit unclear as well.
Right. It wasn't really explained how she got off, but it's definitely explained through THX, like how he got off, because, like you said, she messed with his government-sanctioned medication to keep him in line. From what I gathered, why they take so much medication is to follow orders, be like kind of like an efficient machine creating robots. And then we find out later in the movie that it's a society run by robots. Those police officers, like, they pretty much rule with an iron fist, literally, because they're made of metal. And yeah, I thought that was weird. Like, it's a society run by robots. Like, how did the robots get in charge in the first place?
That, and I found a little Easter egg in there. I don't know if you noticed it, but his job is to build robots. Mm-hmm. And did you notice that one looked like C-3PO?
Yeah, a little bit. So we watched the director's cut of THX-1138, and so it has better special effects or improved special effects. So I think George Lucas wanted to make a little nod, a little wink to his main audience, the Star Wars fans, by making the robot look kind of like C-3PO.
Definitely gold. Shiny gold.
Yeah, he's building goldenrod over there. And speaking of goldenrod, so they're nuclear-powered robots? Is that what you gathered?
Yeah, it looked like some kind of uranium type, I don't know, like cylinder that he needed to drop in there. And of course, under that kind of pressure, he buckled to it, you can say, as he dropped it a few times and caused a near meltdown.
Yeah, so that's because... So he's building these robots, and we find out earlier in the movie that a meltdown occurred, and this huge explosion happened, and some workers died, and there's a booming voice over the intercom saying, like, be alert, avoid workplace casualties. And that was like the precursor to what's going to happen with THX, which is that he's going to get off his medication, and he has a very stressful job by putting these pretty much nuclear waste modules into the robots, which I assume are the batteries. And so he's like freaking out. And it doesn't help that the government knows that he's not taking his medication. They're like keeping an eye on him. So they do what it's called. They do like a mind freeze or something, which scrambles his brain, which almost destroys the entire plant.
And that was one of my favorite scenes when after they found out that he was off his drugs, and they're kind of basically controlling him remotely, and making him, he's in this room by himself. It's all white, which is a lot of the scenes where there's punishment or something going on. Yeah. You don't see any depth to the setting that they're in. It's just like this white abyss, endless abyss, and they're controlling him remotely, and moving his arms and his legs and making him almost like seize on the floor. So it just shows the kind of power that these overlords have.
Oh yeah, it's very creepy. So let's get into the dystopian nature of this film. For me, growing up, when I watched this, I think this was one of the first dystopian type movies I watched. So I think that molded my tastes in movies, because it's definitely an interesting outlook. Because when you look towards the future, you think it's going to be like optimistic and hopeful, but the opposite can happen.
Which I thought was fun with it being a George Lucas movie, because being so used to Star Wars, everything's about hope and good overtaking evil.
Yep.
And it was funny that his first movie was the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
So, which is not going into it, not something I was expecting. I was expecting this along the same lines as Star Wars, or what I know of Indiana Jones, like that adventure where, our heroes overcome those obstacles because that they're going to. But in this, there was never a moment in the film where you felt like THX was going to overcome it.
Right. Like throughout the entire movie, like you feel like he can get snatched up or caught or killed at any moment. Like with Luke Skywalker, like you feel like he is going to defeat the enemy, blow up the Death Star and all that stuff. So I would say it makes it more like tension filled to have your protagonist not like, you don't know. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones of sci-fi. It's like, is he going to make it? I don't really know.
And what helped build on that tension is, and why I also felt that connection to like 2001: A Space Odyssey, is that a lot of the scenes were very drawn out, very long, where it helps build that anxiety, especially at like the scene after he was caught. He was in a prison with some other people who, were caught for whatever reason. And just the scenes were very drawn out, and you see like kind of how these people are off the medication and how they truly feel about things.
And what's interesting about those other inmates that he's with? So THX is THX, and then his lover was LUH. I interpreted THX as kind of like an acronym for sex, which is forbidden in their society, and then LUH is love, which is also forbidden. So his cellmates, one of them was called NCH, which can be short for Nietzsche, and like all of his dialogue is aligned with Nietzsche's teachings. And then PLO is short for Plato, and like same thing with that actor. All of his dialogue can be similar to Plato. So I thought that was like interesting and funny that George Lucas put those Easter eggs in there by naming those prisoners after philosophers, and like having their dialogues be aligned with what they believed and their worldview. And I think that's thematically important because THX is trying to break out of his prison, both the actual cell that he's in and also the society that imprisons him. Yeah, he's trying to break out of the prison, like both in his head, in the cell, and the society that he's in. And I think that's very prevalent in a lot of dystopian movies where you have the protagonist and then they realize like the world that they live in, and then they want to, get out. I think a good similar film to THX-1138 is 1984 and A Brave New World. Like, did you have those vibes as you were watching it? Like, for those that don't know, 1984, like the main crux of the movie is you have civilian Winston Smith, and then he falls in love with Julia. And in that society, love is forbidden because then you procreate, and then the government can't really regulate like the population that way. So they keep them under like authoritarian rule, so they don't like do things that aren't supposed to. And THX seems to be like a big influence for that movie. Like, did you get those vibes at all?
No, I definitely got that, like George Orwell. That was one thing that definitely came to mind watching it. Stanley Kubrick, as far as, the film, cinematography goes. But yeah, it definitely, that seemed like a popular theme in this, in those years of the late 60s, early 70s, because I think it was that technological start of the technological transition.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people feared that, and this is kind of the art that came out from it, and we're still going through that today with artificial intelligence.
Yep.
How is that going to impact our lives? And there's definitely a lot of parallels you can draw from late 60s, early 70s to now, where we're still fearing the same things.
Yeah. And then going off of that, I would say the movie is definitely a reflection of 60s life, because you have the consumerism aspect of it, which is, so THX throughout the entire movie It's made it's seen like he's like a religious man because he atones and he prays to a picture of Jesus.
Was that Jesus?
It was Jesus.
Okay.
Like,
I thought it was kind of their state edited version of Jesus.
yeah, it's weird because like it's like a 17th century picture of Jesus. So I don't know how this alien civilization found it. Maybe it's like the far future where like humanity has like destroyed and maybe they found like this remnant from our civilization. But every single line of dialogue, because he's in the confession booth, like confessing to this picture, and what the picture says is, buy more, be happy.
Well, everything he says is everything that THX-1138 confesses. It's their Jesus Christ version is called OMM0000. It's all like a pre-recorded response.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't an actual interaction going on between the two, which is obvious to the viewer, but I think in THX's mind, I don't think that was anything that he may have picked up on, because he was just confessing to this portrait as if, you know, there was a real human being there and was giving him meaningful guidance.
Right.
And then I thought that was actually one of my favorite scenes, just because it was so, I think it just depicted very well the attitude of what's going on in this dystopian world. And then he ends the confession with, "You are a true believer. Blessings of the state, blessings of the masses. Work hard, increase production, prevent accidents, and be happy," because they were very proud that in the last period they only lost 195 workers compared to 242 by the competitor.
The competitor makes you think, like, who is the competitor?
Yeah,
Is it like another civilization?
We don't get any access to that in the film.
Yeah. So yeah, like that whole, and then like later on in the movie, which I really enjoyed. So like when he's on meds, like he gets those pre-recorded messages and he like believes it. And then when he goes back to the confession booth off his meds, like he gets sick in the confession booth and he like throws up and he's like not responding to the painting. And the painting is just giving those canned responses of like, yes, tell me more. You are a good believer. And it's like, I think he knows now.
Yeah, it's like, it reminded me of like a therapist who's totally checked out of their patient's session. So they're sitting on their chair playing hangman or something, like in their notepad, because they really don't care what's being said.
Yeah, and then like later on in the movie, another character, SEN, who was in the prison with THX, he ends up finding the TV production area for those paintings. So it's like an image that's being recorded and being sent out. And he still believes up until the end, while THX sees behind, kind of like the Wizard of Oz moment where he sees behind the curtain and realizes it's all a sham. So, and then another link to like 60s life being an allegory is the fear aspect, like both towards the government, like the overruling power, like you must comply and obey, and also the fear of being different, because THX embodies like individuality while the rest of civilization embodies uniformity, both in their shaved heads, their all white clothing, like everyone taking meds to be, you know, essentially robots in flesh. And the part that really stands out for me, like to relate it back to 60s life, is the trial scene when they find out he's been having, you know, sex with LUH, and they call him an erotic.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. I remember laughing out loud to that one. Yeah. It was a very interesting way to put it.
Yeah, and like during that scene, they're like, it was like McCarthyism, like, oh, he's an erotic. And like, I think there was like a lawyer figure saying like, my client has never been or has never like thought of being an erotic, which parallels, I have never been, nor am I a communist.
I thought that scene was very interesting because what we knew of the society up until that point, everything was very structured, very black and white, no gray area.
Yep.
And I felt that this scene was interesting because they had a trial. And leading up to that point, it felt as if you had done something wrong, that was it, and you were going to be sent to whatever punishment, that was there. So I thought that was very interesting that they did argue over the crimes that he was being accused of. And so I thought that was interesting because it didn't seem as if anyone would have had an opportunity to be, not convicted of, the crime that they were on trial for.
Right. Like, because, it made it seem like if you fell out of line, you were taken out very quickly. But it seems like they want to keep people around because it would be, I guess, harder to, replace everybody in like a timely manner. Would you say that the fears of the 60s are still relevant today?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Circling back to what I talked about with AI, I think, and this was obviously something brought up in our current presidential elections and debates.
Yep.
With there is a fear that amongst working class people that slowly they can see that artificial intelligence is replacing those jobs. So where does that AI takeover start? It's going to start somewhere, and obviously along the production line is kind of the ground zero for it. And then obviously in this movie, we don't know where the starting point was, but we could, let's just assume that they follow the same lines that we're dealing with in 2020. And the AI went from building cars to being our overlord. So I think that has always been something that's hung over the heads of humanity. And I don't know if a lot of people take it seriously. And who knows if...
People are. Like presidential candidate Andrew Yang, that was his big platform.
And that may have been the first time that was ever really seriously discussed in a presidential debate or election or anything like that. And but that's why I feel like, that notion is out there, but I don't know how serious it really is taken by the masses.
Right.
I think you need to be working in those fields to kind of see what's happening. I mean, just the other day I was at Taco Bell and they don't even have cashiers anymore. It's you walk in and they've got screens set up.
Really?
And you just order off the screen, and then it goes to their computer in the back.
Wow.
And they make it and bring it out. So, I mean, there's still obviously workers to make the food, but they've eliminated, basically a cashier position. So you could see that AI has already taken over.
Yeah, and right now it's for the bottom line to like save money. But I could totally see it morphing and becoming like a larger issue if it's unchecked. I think that's ultimately the fear is we'll be enslaved by our own creation.
Yes.
And that's terrifying. But I think there's a lot of people like of prominence that are worried about AI. Stephen Hawking, before he passed away, he was talking about the dangers of AI and how we should not proceed with it. Steve Wozniak also voiced his concern, saying like this is not a good idea. Elon Musk also said AI is not a good idea. So like all these people that are very, very smart, that know technology, are saying do not proceed with AI, and yet we're not listening.
It's all about that bottom line.
Or do you think it's like another ulterior motive? Do you think there are people that want to be enslaved by robots? I mean, it would make life easier, wouldn't it?
It would. But I think that AI also opens up the possibility of things that humanity can't access. So while there's a fear, I think there's also an excitement about, like, let's use the example of Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, we can't send humans to Mars, but what if we had the ability to put a robot just like us on the planet where we can almost live that experience vicariously through that AI? So Mars has only been explored via, rovers, but
Right.
to have that human touch to it, I think would be a big step if, down the road, that if we were to colonize, I think AI would have to be the front line and being able to do something like that since space is the final frontier.
It really is. I never thought of it that way. I mean, it would make sense if we could create like a robot that is humanoid and like explore it that way. I guess Boston Dynamics needs to step up their game and get some robots.
Yeah, I'll send those to shoot them off in a SpaceX rocket.
And let's take it a step further. Okay, so I'm sure you are familiar with alien life.
Very familiar with alien life.
So, and you love Ancient Aliens, right?
Not so much anymore. I was like
I know.
on board with that. Like in the heyday of Ancient Aliens, I was on board. I think, I think a lot of what those theories that they present, I think there is some merit to it, but once we start talking about is Bigfoot an alien or all that stuff, I kind of start tuning it out. But I think there is some merit to that theory.
So I'm sure. So the reason why I bring it up is because you're talking about AI, robots, humanoid. There is a theory that the classical alien with the big head and the big black eyes, called the Greys, those are actually AI. Those are robots sent either from another civilization or maybe humans from the future. Do you think if we progress in AI, we would get to that stage of like having robots that pretty much look like organic things?
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. That we haven't done it when we do our interplanetary exploration. We don't send humans. We send probes and rovers and things like that. So we could mirror that to what we do. Is so if there was a advanced race out there wanting to look at us, they probably wouldn't send themselves there. They would send something else. So their interpretation of a probe or a rover is a UFO with little gray people in there. So I think that's definitely a feasible theory.
It makes sense to me. Relaying it back to THX, what did you think of the design of the robot guards?
It had that 60s feel to their design.
Yeah. They were in all black. Their face is like chromed
out. They have like a riot gear kind of helmet on. But what's really funny, they obviously how those police droids are implemented is in a very Gestapo kind of way.
Yep.
But the funny thing about it is they're like the most polite kind of police officers, because they're always like, oh, everything will be okay, just come with us, like you'll be fine, like
right.
Trying to soothe the fears of whoever they're trying to capture. But it doesn't always end that way. They have their politeness, but if you continue to not obey, they will beat you with their batons.
Right. It's like, come with me, please,
Yeah.
as they raise their baton.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I feel good now.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring that up because so THX is trying to escape. That's the kind of like the main theme, like going into the unknown. And it's a theme that I feel that George Lucas explores a lot in his movies, because the person getting that call to adventure and then going off into the unknown. You see it in Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, the farm boy, and he goes off on an adventure. It's also in American Graffiti, where the main character, I think it's Ron Howard, and he gets that call to go off and to like have fun with his friends and race cars. So it's a theme that George Lucas likes to explore a lot. I would say it's the big like theme in life. So it's like you have the familiarity, and then something happens, and then you have a choice. Either go out on an adventure, and it's not always easy, or remain stagnant, and you don't grow as a person, and you just refuse the call. So a lot of movies that we reviewed so far in Syndicate explores that, and it wasn't intentional. It just kind of happened that way. Truman Show had that, where Jim Carrey realizes that he's in a world that's fabricated, and then he has a choice either to stay or to leave. And I think that mirrors THX too. We can get into the ending of the movie now.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
So after he was imprisoned, him and SEN.
Yeah, so it's THX, SEN, and they meet kind of like the Obi-Wan character. He's a hologram. So he's kind of like this mystical, technological person that looks like a human being.
But used for entertainment purposes, because earlier in the film, part of their entertainment is watching these holographic performances. So they meet that actor, holographic actor, who helps them escape.
Yeah, he was kind of like a commercial for a car, like a used car commercial.
Yes, amongst other things.
Yes. Yeah, they keep the population subdued, and to relieve their urges, they have like pornography displayed.
Yeah.
Very
and
strange.
He's one of the actors in that too. But yeah, he's imprisoned after his trial that we talked about, where he was found guilty of being an erotic.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in this big white abyss, him and SEN and PLO.
Yep.
And other various inmates. And THX decides, well, after this rousing speech by SEN, Blofeld from James Bond.
He's Blofeld?
He's Blofeld.
Okay, so that's Donald
Pleasance.
Yeah, because I know him from Halloween as Dr. Loomis.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I
forgot
know.
he was in Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But as a big James Bond fan, I immediately was like, that's Blofeld.
See, I didn't recognize him without the giant scar
without
on his face.
the scar and the white cat. So yeah, after a rousing speech by Blofeld, THX decides he's just going to walk in a direction and try to get out.
Yes.
And SEN decides to follow him. And they start to kind of get confused on where they are, because there's no point of interest. There's nothing around. And then off in the distance, the hologram actor appears, and they say, "Oh, where's the way out?" And he points and says, "That's the way out." And they look behind, and they said, "Oh, well, that's where we came from." But magically appears like a doorway out into the chaos of the concrete city that they came from.
Mm-hmm. So George Lucas, in his 3 acts of his movie, so it's 3 different ways to explain the theme of leaving home. So the first one is he falls in love with LUH, and that's more the conventional way. And then them going through the abyss is the more abstract way. And that's, for me, very jarring, just to see them walk in a void.
Yeah.
Like aimlessly trying to find the exit. It's kind of terrifying. And then the third act is the action way of leaving home. So after they go through the doorway and they go into the hustle and bustle of hundreds of thousands of people just walking around. So after they get through that, what happens?
Well, they end up getting separated, and SEN finds, as you had mentioned before, the production studio of their state-ran propaganda, and he's led on his own bit of a chase where he ends up sitting on a bench, and he sees some children, and at that moment, I mean, he knew his run was over, and I think he wanted to take that time to appreciate, something that, because they don't live in a society where they take a step back to appreciate anything. Everything is work, production. So he used his last moments as a free individual to appreciate these two children, and they're still pure in a sense, before he's taken away by the extremely polite Gestapo.
Yeah. Like a velvet covered iron fist.
Yes.
Yeah. So then after SEN is captured, THX learns the fates of LUH.
Yes, that she was devoured. What was the word that they used for it?
I
can't remember the word, but essentially she was killed and used to, well, she was pregnant, but then they harvested her fetus and put that in a jar.
Yeah. So it's either she was killed and, they extracted her unborn child. And then what's interesting is THX and the hologram find where people come from. And it's kind of like an incubation
Consumed.
area.
She was consumed.
She was consumed.
Yes.
Makes you wonder what she was consumed by.
That word I always think of being eaten.
Yeah. So maybe there's a beast in the belly of the megastructure. So what's interesting is that tube where the fetus is, it's LUH. It says LUH, LUH 3417, which is her exact name. So for me, the way I interpreted the movie is, also because you had the story of leaving the comforts into the unknown, but also I felt like there was a spiritual journey aspect to it in 3 different ways. And so maybe that is a symbol for reincarnation, because is it the same numbers being used over and over and over again, or is it new people? Because if you really think about it, they don't really need to have new names if they serve the same function.
Because they only exist for one single purpose. So once they feel as if their time is over, they're consumed and reborn into hell. I wouldn't say that this reincarnation is to, because the theory of reincarnation is to live a different life and maybe not make up for what you didn't do in your previous life, but maybe to look at life a different way and and things like that. But this is definitely the opposite of that. That if this is reincarnation, it's just a perpetual hell. That you're consumed and then reborn to serve the same purpose. So it's a very bleak outlook at their existence.
It's like LUH was eliminated and erased, just like that, with in a blink of an eye.
But who's to say though, if she did regenerate to the version we saw, that she wouldn't still make those decisions again? So does that spirit,
like a predestined
type
thing?
Is that does her consciousness or her spirit get erased and she's born into a new? She looks the same but a different different mind, or will she continue to try to get out of that situation?
It's kind of like memories in it's kind of like memories explored in Blade Runner with the different replicants, and it's like they're the same person and they have the same memories, and do those memories persist? Are they different? It's definitely an interesting thought to think about. Would she be the same person even though she's cloned? Or
I guess that's a chance they're willing to take if it means another person on the production line.
So after they leave that area, the hologram and THX take it upon themselves to escape by force. which is they steal some race cars.
Very cool, futuristic race cars.
Oh, yeah. So THX starts the ignition and drives off. A high-speed chase ensues. And what happens to our hologram friend?
Well, he's a little too big to get into the car. He finally squeezes himself in, and I don't know if it's his hologram self that can't quite figure out how to start the car, but he has problems with starting it. The robot police are almost there to capture him. He finally gets the car started and immediately crashes into a pole.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah, I was expecting him to get captured, but I didn't think it was going to be immediately.
Yeah, it's very visceral. It's just like goes and he just slams into...
As soon as that car starts, slams into a pole.
Yeah, it's funny how the most technological thing in the movie can't operate a car.
Yes.
Like THX does with ease, but a thing that's designed by technology can't operate another technology thing.
And it just shows that people do the purpose that the people serve, that because clearly robots can't do the job that the humans are doing, so that's why they're kept around, that they weren't ultimately replaced by other robots created by robots.
Yeah, so it kind of goes to show you that maybe the AI takeover won't work in the end because they still need us. Or maybe it's going to be like a Matrix situation where we're the batteries of the robots. We could talk about this for hours.
I think the combinations and the theories are endless on what our place amongst AI, where that stands.
Right. So THX gets away and he's driving off, and he gets to a point outside of the megastructure, or getting close to outside that megastructure. And what's interesting for me is, like, we see a society, and it looks pretty clean, like pretty sterile. And then he gets closer to the outside, and it gets more and more like dark, gets more beaten down. So it looked
unfinished. Like this society maybe was in the process of expanding, because there was towards the end of his chase, there was workers that he crashed through their scaffolding.
Yes, yeah.
So we're kind of led to believe that this concrete city was in the process of expanding through this highway he was driving on, and he kind of ruined that because he crashed through what they were working on.
Yeah. What's interesting about that scene is a lot of those like sceneries were just places in San Francisco.
Yeah, it was their underground tunnel that I believe was still being worked on.
Yep.
So that's why it looked the way it did.
Yeah, the BART system.
Yeah.
What's interesting, I was getting like Time Machine vibes. Have you seen The Time Machine?
No.
So in The Time Machine, we have this scientist that goes to the far future, and he sees, I guess, what humanity becomes, and they become like these monster creatures. And we see monster creatures as we're leaving the structure. Like we see, like, I would say mutants from the outside. And we don't really know what's happening on the outside other than there is life, and it doesn't seem to be very nice. Do you think the Earth can become inhospitable like that?
Well, if you're led to believe the climate change theory, that things are going to evolve in a way to survive depending on what the climate conditions are. So I definitely could see that if the Earth is heating up, things are going to evolve to survive, and that may not look like something that's very gentle.
Yeah, like I could totally see it happening if we're not too careful.
Yeah.
So THX evades police, and he climbs to the top of the structure. I think it's a structure.
Yeah, like it's a tunnel. There's a long ladder, fixed into the concrete, and he's climbing up it, and the robot policeman is right behind him being polite.
Yeah.
oh, everything's going to be okay if you just come down. But as this chase was unfolding, we have cuts to a kind of command center, and it shows how much the chase is costing the state.
Yeah.
And throughout most of it, this voice over the intercoms was saying, "Oh, we're doing okay. This is under budget,"
Mm-hmm.
And it shows how much under budget. And then at the end, as the robot policeman is on his tail going up this ladder, the chase hit over budget, and at that point, the profit margin was no more, and the police robot had to leave him to see what is on the other side of that ladder.
Yep. So I thought that was funny that they're like, we're spending too much money.
Too
on
much
this
money.
guy.
Yep. Let him figure it out.
So my favorite shot of the entire movie is the end. So he gets out of the structure, which I believe is an underground structure underneath the surface of whatever planet they're on, and it's the sun setting, and the way it's shot, they make the sun so huge, and to achieve that, they used 1,000 millimeter length lens, and to put that in perspective, like a normal camera is like 50 millimeters. So this lens is about 4 feet long, and it was like the prized possession of Francis Ford Coppola. So they used that to get that one shot, and it was
very well used. But did you interpret that as the sun setting or the sun rising?
I always thought it was setting. Could be rising.
Because I felt as it was rising, because obviously movies are always filled with symbolism. That's unavoidable. So I felt as if the sun rising was the more of symbolism for a new beginning for THX on the surface of the planet, as far as instead of setting, where I felt like that message would be like, this is the end of his existence, and he would cease to exist on the surface of the planet. So I always thought it was rising.
That makes more sense.
Unless George Lucas has said that it was setting, but if he did, it's wrong. George Lucas is wrong in his own movie.
I think that makes more sense, that it's probably rising, because it's a hopeful ending. He escaped the clutches of his government, so like everything is kind of like on the up and up, but we don't really know what happens to THX.
Nope.
And that's kind of like where his story ends is where
Star Wars begins.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say where Neo's journey begins. Same thing with Truman Show. He's like, he breaks through the dome that he's been inhabiting, and then his story begins, and we don't really know what happens. And then with this one, it's same story where
what if this was what if THX-1138 was Anakin's father?
Bum bum bum. I could start a YouTube channel with that theory.
Just saying.
I mean, it makes a lot. I mean, it could be. Qui-Gon is like, oh yes, who was the father? This man named THX.
Yeah.
We're gonna say no father. That makes no sense. That would be great. So to end the show, we like to do the one reason why. So what would be one reason you would recommend this movie to somebody?
I would recommend it for the same reason why I wanted to watch it, is because we all know George Lucas for Star Wars. Some know him also for Indiana Jones. We know the style of film he likes to make. He likes that adventure, drawn out adventure with several parts, like with Indiana Jones, with Star Wars, trekking through space or trekking through jungles and things like that. But this is the complete opposite, where we have Star Wars as this big universe with many planets, and THX-1138 we're underground in this concrete city. So I would watch it because it's a different kind of George Lucas film. It has a different feeling, a different vibe, to me, a different way of filming.
Yeah.
like I said in the beginning, I felt immediately very Stanley Kubrick vibes in this film. And I know that's the style of that era, as Star Wars was probably 8 years after this.
77. So
so I would watch it if you want just a different take of a George Lucas film that almost feels like that like a piece of art.
Watching this movie or rewatching this movie, I got a lot of respect for George Lucas.
Yes,
because easily you can see him as like this like pop movie type of guy where he makes Star Wars or Indiana Jones, but like this movie is super avant-garde. And the reason why I would recommend this to somebody is because it's a very deep movie. Like you can interpret this movie in a whole bunch of different ways because it is very minimal. It's a very art house sci-fi movie. Like the themes of, because you really have to think about it. So like this movie is kind of a reflection of 60s life, and like during that time it was the height of the Cold War, East versus West, Eastern collectivism, Western individuality, and like you could totally see those two ideas coming together and clashing in this film. And then with the fears of being different, the fears of being something that goes against societal norms, whether it's McCarthyism or, in THX's case, eroticism.
Yes, eroticism.
So the reason why I would recommend it is because it's a great movie as like a think piece. Like it's kind of like if emotions can be a movie, that would be it.
Agreed.
And until next time, see you later, movie fans.
That's it for this time on The Syndicate. We hope you enjoyed yourself. Keep the conversation going by adding us on Instagram and Letterboxd, where you can catch Armand along other podcasters and listeners at Syndicate. And until next time, stop that scroll and spend more time watching. Goodbye.